All right, welcome back to MLive's Dungeon of Doom podcast. I am Ben Raven. He is Corey Woods. Nope.
I'm here. I'm just I'm a little speechless. I mean, and I know we talked about this, that we didn't really like talking about the back to back. You know how they respond after a loss, how they haven't had consecutive losses. But we're now back to some interesting waters with not one, not two, but three straight.
Ugh, it's pretty bad. It's Christmas. It's 9:50 Central Time, 10:50 back at home. The Lions just lost 23-10 to the Minnesota Vikings to officially get eliminated from the postseason. The Band-Aid has been ripped off. The dwindling playoff chances are dead and gone just like that. And I just cannot believe that we're about to talk about this type of performance. I know the odds were long, but there was still something to play for. There just was still something to play for. And I cannot believe we're about to talk about a Dan Campbell coach team that looked like that in a game that still had meaning.
Yeah, that was just a shocking performance. You knew going into this game it was going to be difficult as far as trying to overcome the defense that Brian Flores was going to dial up. We've been talking about it all season long. Heck, we've been talking about it since Brian Flores even got to Minnesota because he's just that darn good of a coordinator. But when you talk about Dan Campbell's team, you talk about them playing with grit, with heart, with aggressiveness, and that did not show up at any point of the game. I mean, sure, you can talk about some of the defense. The defense, I say, for the most part, they did a solid job. I mean, they outside of, I don't want to go Kelvin Shepard here, but for the most, if it were not for that jet sweep, they played pretty solid for most of the game. But the offense just gave them nothing to work with, and Jared Goff, I've defended him. I think the first interception he threw, I think that was more just about getting the ball out, not taking a sack. But that second interception, he stared St. Brown down, just and it was just a great break on the ball. And I know we're going to get into a lot of things, but just overall, not to be too long winded. I'm just overall shocked at how they went out there before him. Not the fact that they lost, just how they looked while losing.
Yeah. I got some tweets complaining about the defense in this one, and that confused me. Because the Vikings ended this game with 161 net yards of offense, and 65 of those came on one back-breaking end around with, what was it? Yeah, with 3:52 left in the game. I understand that's frustrating, but Jalen Mills, who's forced into playing his first playing time, his first active game for the Lions, trips and falls, and Addison is just off to the races to put him away. I mean, the Vikings ran, I believe it was 51 plays. They averaged 3.2 yards per play. They had, I'm going to clear my throat so y'all hear me. They had 3 net passing yards in the entire game and still came out as winners. And that is because the Lions didn't turn it over 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, or 5 times. They turned it over 6 freaking times. 6 times. 6 turnovers. They had 8 turnovers. As bad as this season has been, they had 8 turnovers in 15 games entering this one. They had 6 today. They had 4. Wow. Lost 4 fumbles. I think either 5 of their 7 or 6 of their 8 lost fumbles on the season came in the 2 games against the Vikings. Goff had the interceptions on back-to-back possessions coming out of the to end the third quarter there, and they had 1 drive go for more than 35 yards, the Lions, and it was the end-of-half drive where they went 19 plays, 80 yards, converted 3 or 4 third downs, had 6 first downs, and Tesla makes an unbelievable catch in the end zone, and it's like, all right, 7-7, fresh ball game. They just imposed their will, 19 plays, 80 yards, and then they come out, punt, interception, fumble, punt, field goal, fumble, end of game. you are not going to beat the Central Michigan Chippewas doing that with the ball. I cannot believe. I mean, I can believe because it's the offensive line, and people are, oh, Goff has handled Brian Flores' defense well, but that's when he had an offensive line. They did not have Taylor Decker. Kingsley got the start again at center. Dan Skipper's at left tackle. It just, oh my gosh. I know there's going to be times to look to the offseason and look at the offensive line, but it's so hard not to look back on this season and view it as an abject failure to plan for the short term and the future on the offensive line.
I just don't know. I'm okay. I'm gonna ask you a question just because I'm kind of confused on where did they go with this as far as their cap and trying to reinvest in this offensive line in the offseason. Like I know they're pretty cash strapped.
Yeah, they are. And they've got more extensions to take care of too, and it's just not going to help. But I mean, you try to get things done in free agency. You target a veteran starter that maybe you can get on a 1 year type of Kevin Zeitler deal. You target them. I mean, you can't take developmental dart throws in the 5th and 6th rounds, or even worse in the late 3rd or 4th rounds. That is not how this is going to work. You need help now. You knew Frank Ragnow was going through hell just to make it to Sundays for the last couple years of his career. Didn't really, I mean, I know they kind of talked about Tate Ratledge maybe being the center of the future. I personally don't see that. It didn't work. I know he was a rookie. I know it was his first couple of days of training camp, but like, I don't think that's the answer. You know, Taylor Decker's longest tenured player on the team. He's had a lot of injury issues in recent years, and they opened this season by putting a struggling Graham Glasgow at center after a rough second half of the season last year. And then you're starting a second-round rookie and a 6th-round pick, second-year pro who made 2 starts in his career. And that is just, you cannot sit there and say the offensive line is everything we're about when that is how you handle it. And your one pick for the future at tackle, hey, hats off. Giovanni Manu, who knows? But he's going into year 3. Yes, he's got all the physical traits, but we're going into year 3 with him. And taking a dart throw 4th-round pick on a kid out of the University of British Columbia when most had him off the board, if even on the board, egregious. It was egregious then. It was egregious 2 months ago. It's egregious today. I just, they have got to sit down and realize this offense, this quarterback, this running game is not the same without a stout offensive line in front of them. And this offensive line is anything but stout right now.
You know what? And I want to get ahead of this because, like you said, you know, our emails, our social media, it's been on fire with this loss. And again, I want to be very clear about this. I am not about to sit up here and tell you guys that Jared Goff played a great game today. I'm not going to do that. He did not play his best football tonight. Having said that, it is not ideal for him or any quarterback fans may be fantasizing they could replace him with to come in and do any better playing behind this offensive line the way that it has played this season, especially in recent weeks. And again, just like you just said, this is something that Brad Holmes is going to have to answer about because when you take all those project picks and again, it's one thing if you take those picks and they just don't pan out, but you're taking guys who have had checkered injury histories, have guys that are just project picks in general that are too raw. You're taking them that early, and then when things go down and those guys are not ready to take the field, then you're trying to rely on getting guys off the street or poaching players from other teams' practice squads. And while Dan Campbell does have his things that he needs to clean up as well, it's not putting him in the best position either. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody that's out there on the field because they played the game, but it's not ideal for guys to get poached off of practice squads and asking them to play starter minutes, meaningful minutes against teams' best players. They're all pros, they're pro bowlers. It's not ideal.
No, it's just it was the 3rd straight game. I mean, and it's just completely warped the running game too. I mean, it's the 3rd straight game the Lions have rushed for under 100 yards. They've done that 7 times this season, and they are 0-7 in those games. And I just saw this while kind of perusing NFL Next Gen stats. Through weeks 1 through 14, the Lions averaged 5 yards per carry, 677 rush yards before contact. That was the fourth most in the NFL. Since week 15, which week 15 was the Rams game, 2.5 yards per carry. That's dead last in the NFL. And they have lost, wow, another clear your throat so you hear me right. They have lost 42 rushing yards before contact. That's why it's been so hard to write about Gibbs. That's why it's been confusing to write about Montgomery, because they haven't had a chance, man. Like, they have, my gosh, I think it was the fourth quarter. You got Dan Skipper at left tackle, and you run a slow developing run to Gibbs out of the backfield. He's tackled the second he touches the ball. That was just like a microcosm of what went wrong this season. Cause like I'm trying to like work ahead on the column and stuff like that. And it's like, I I have a hard time blaming anything more than I do the offensive line. And I don't blame Hank Fraley. He's a great coach. He freaking better be here next year, but he needs some pieces. I mean, they started Dan Skipper and Kingsley on the offensive line today. You're starting Mahogany on 4 days rest in his first game back from suffering a cracked fibula. That's not good. Sewell goes down. I think it was his ankle. I mean, I know he came back, but like, man, the interior offensive line is the thing that concerns me the most. Obviously, Decker has kind of openly contemplated some tough decisions he has to make this offseason, but you and I have kind of been in agreement. Like, I don't think he's going to go out like this. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so. I think he tries to give it another go,
Yeah,
at
I
least
do
one
too.
more year at it, and then maybe go ahead and ride off into the sunset. That said, whether he comes back or not, drafting his replacement needs to happen ASAP. Maybe you luck up and you get a guy that wants to come to Detroit and play on a small deal. I don't know. I don't want to be here stuttering because I just don't have the answers in front of me, but you just cannot expect. And then again, this bigger than golf. We're talking about the run game as well. You cannot expect this offensive line to perform to the level that you're expecting or that you're accustomed to without investing in that. And again, that's going to fall on Brad Holmes because you just did not do what was needed to address the depth.
No, and mainly on the offensive line. We already covered that, but like now it's really tough to sit here and be like, yeah, they got to use like 2 of their first 3 picks on offensive linemen, but like they got some serious problems at safety just based on we don't know Kirby's knee, what that's going to take. Who knows? It's been a really weird, confusing season, whether the brief times we've talked to him or the updates from Dan all year. And I mean, I know people are trying to be optimistic about Brian Branch's Achilles injury, but that's a giant question mark. And then you look at the pending free agents, and it's Alex Anzalone. This defense is freaking so much worse without Alex Anzalone. He is their best coverage linebacker. He is the perfect guy to kind of pair with Jack Campbell, especially with Derek Barnes' up and down play this season. You got to find out a way to keep him. That's not going to be cheap. I mean, it's not going to break the bank, but it's not going to be cheap. And that's a reason why they didn't do it before training camp or during training camp. And then you got guys like Amik Robertson and DJ Reader, and you hope Ty Leak answers the call. But then but then we're like, you're breaking in new pieces. So I just don't know. There's a lot of, Dan kind of talked about that after the game, just like the tough decisions ahead. And it was just kind of like, I'm sitting like 3 feet in front of him, and I'm like, holy crap. The Lions are 8-8, and Dan Campbell's like talking about the offseason and Brad Holmes after week 17. Like, I know how we got here, but how did we get here? And it's just wild, man. 3 straight losses, 3-6 since the bye week. This is not just a 500 team since the bye. They're 3 games below 500.
And if we're going to be real, I mean, they did win the game, but they easily could have lost that Giants game as well.
Yes.
I mean, you just got to factor in. Just got to factor in how that game turned out. I saw what you posted from what Dan said, kind of skim through it because I still had to get my own stuff up, and I think that is going to be a really interesting dynamic this offseason. the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell dynamic, because it's one thing when you're in agreement and lockstep on how to build the roster. At least that's what they tell us. Who knows what,
Right. They
goes
always
on.
say
But
50-50, we've never disagreed. Everything's perfect.
you're talking about a serious setback. You have regressed the past 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
Take away the record. You've regressed the past 3 years. You've gone from NFC title game to divisional round to now you're not even going to make the postseason. And it's a question of if you're going to finish with a winning record. You could very well go from back to back division title winners to last place in the division in one season's time. And that is something that has to get addressed. And who knows? From what it sounds like to me, and I'm not trying to be an armchair psychologist, whatever you want to say it. It sounds like Dan is like significant changes have to be made because he doesn't like that feeling.
Yeah.
That's it was written
No.
all over his face.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was pretty. I mean, he was still Dan Campbell, but you could tell he was just pretty dejected and frustrated and pissed off, and also probably thinking what we're thinking, like, holy crap, life comes at you fast. But yeah, it's just, I mean, they got to talk about their defensive scheme. They've got to talk about how they're stubborn about certain types of players at certain types of position, and maybe find a little flexibility. I don't know, man. I'm not going to sit here and dog on the defense when they only give up 161 yards because they gave that offense every single freaking chance in the world to win that game today. And I just want to be clear, this was not the 2024 Minnesota Vikings. This was Max Brosmer. This was no Aaron Jones in the second half. This was no Christian Darrisaw. This was no TJ Hawkinson. I mean, we're talking about a team that was 4-8 4 weeks ago. They've won 4 in a row. And to get swept by the Vikings and Packers, to be 1-4 in the NFC North heading into the season finale in Chicago, they ran the table in the division last year. We scoffed at all the regression talk from national spots. And they're like, well, okay, what does regression mean for a 15-win team? Well, now we have found out what regression means from a 15-win team, because there's a chance there is a 7-win difference if they lose this next game in Chicago. And I know nobody probably even gives a crap about the Chicago game. And I try to put myself in your shoes, and how the hell are you supposed to give a crap about that game unless you're looking just to keep Ben Johnson from getting the 1 seed, or keep them from doing something, or just not to get swept by Ben Johnson in year 1. I mean, I get that, but 6 turnovers, 6 freaking turnovers. But you did bring up one thing, and this is where we get a little optimistic. The 4th place schedule, if that happens to the Lions, you saw what happened with the 49ers. They were awesome in 2023, beat the Lions in the NFC title game. They absolutely stunk last year, a lot of injuries. This year, they get a pretty favorable schedule, and they're right in the mix for the number 1 seed. So if they handle this offseason right, either if it's the 3rd place it's going to be the 3rd place or the 4th place schedule, depending on what happens. And if the Vikings and the Lions both lose next week and both finish the season at 8-9, the Vikings will be the 3rd place team. So that 4th place schedule, if you're looking for something to be a little optimistic about next year, do that, because there's a big difference between playing the 3rd place. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it is, man, because the 2026 schedule, the 3 teams that aren't decided yet, NFC East, that would be the Commanders. AFC South, that would be the Titans. NFC West, that would be avoiding Seattle, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and getting a road trip to Arizona. And they already have games against the Saints and the New York Jets next season. So just, if you're looking for anything optimistic, I know that sucks to even think that way, but it's kind of where we're at right now. Can you believe I just had to say that?
No, but it really is the only silver lining, and I do like the context that you put it in, because you said it best with the San Francisco analogy. It's like, hey, they had a bad season, went through a lot, and then boom, they're bouncing back. San Francisco this season could be, I would still say right now leaning on the Rams, but San Francisco could be a sneaky favorite to come out the NFC.
Yeah.
So who knows? Like you said, if the Lions handle their offseason the way that they should, that could
Yeah.
potentially be them, but it's going to come with
Yeah.
a oh, how can I say this? At a serious cost because I'm telling everybody right now,
Yeah.
I hope you're not in love with too many of these guys because this is going to be a very different looking team next season. There are going to be some exits.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's gonna be some veteran favorites that probably don't get that deal to come back. There's gonna be I mean, I would have to imagine there's gonna be. I mean, they already are gonna need a new tight ends coach. I mean, yeah, whatever. But like, there's some serious question marks at offensive coordinator. I have said in recent weeks, I do not hate the idea of Dan Campbell going into the offseason, knowing he's going to be the play caller. First time getting an offseason to think like a play caller like that. I know he's always thinking offense. He's an offensive coach, but I kind of also get the cries from fans like, holy crap, this team needs an offensive coordinator. And maybe they do. Maybe they need Dan's oversight. Maybe they need Dan to be able to do more than be so focused on calling plays. I'm on the fence about it. I I I I just when I think about Dan Campbell having a full offseason to just think like a play caller while working with Brad to rework the roster to what he wants to do, there is some optimism in that. But I also, and we'll also see who's available and what's out there. But who knows? We'll see what happens with John Morton. We'll see what happens with Campbell deciding who's going to call the plays or not. But like that's just one of several tough conversations and decisions this team's going to have in the coming weeks and months. And gosh, yeah, it's just you got what, $1 billion in extensions on your core guys, and you got a couple more coming. I mean, they were already conservative enough in free agency. DJ Reed's the biggest deal they've ever handed out under Brad Holmes in 5 years or 4 years, whatever it is. And I don't see them getting that much more aggressive in free agency unless they find ways to really clear some cap. Now, two two guys we got to talk about that I think could be gone. And the one's new contract hasn't even kicked in yet, and that's David Montgomery. It really seems like that's come to a weird spot. There's been some stuff on social media that people have picked up on. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, the guy hasn't had double digit carries in a very long time. His role was reduced to less than 20 snaps in 3 straight games coming into this one. I don't have the snap counts yet from this game in front of me, but just David Montgomery. And with Graham Glasgow being healthy today and not playing, not getting the start over Kingsley, kind of feels like that might be coming to an end too.
Yeah, with Graham being someone go on both of those. First off of Graham, with Graham being healthy and not playing, that to me just signaled like, you know what? We're punting on you. Let's just see what we got out of Kingsley real quick before we,
Which I don't hate.
yeah, which I
Yeah.
don't hate.
Mhm.
Let's just see what we get from Kingsley before as we go ahead and have to go into a tough offseason as it is anyway. So that's where I'm at on that one. With David Montgomery, and I want to be clear because these guys listen to everything, even though they say they don't.
Yes. So true.
I think the David Montgomery thing has ran its course, and here's why I say it. David Montgomery to me is still a darn good back that is capable of being a lead running back in this league. And when you're splitting the carries effectively, like you've done in recent seasons between him and Gibbs, okay, that works. But when you're talking about somewhere like a 70 to 30 load or an 80 to 20 load, heck, sometimes even 90 to 10 load, that is really wasting a healthy David Montgomery who still has a lot left in the tank. And I even though his new deal hasn't kicked in, you don't want to have a disgruntled David Montgomery in your locker room. And that's why I just think that the relationship has ran its course. Now, if you would improve on this offensive line and you want to go back to what works and you have a conversation with him and say, hey, we're gonna we're gonna focus on repairing this offensive line. We're gonna go back to what works and really start splitting the carries between you and Gibbs because that's what made us at our best. Okay, you know what? Cool. Roll with it. But if you're gonna go ahead and continue to make Gibbs the lead back, which is not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, But if that's the way you want to go, see what you can get from the trade market.
Yeah, and it's hard to justify not just that it's not hard to justify that contract for Montgomery when he's a part of the offense. And I've made it pretty clear. Jahmyr Gibbs should be the lead back. He should have the lion's share, if you will, of the touches and of the snaps. But like even Dan Campbell said it like what 6 days ago, this offense is better when David Montgomery is involved. And it's just so true because that's why the Sonic and Knuckles thing took off the way it did, because they had two backs who brought something different to the offense. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is a superstar. Yes, he's your lead back. Yes, he's the guy who can make something out of nothing. Or nothing, whatever, something out of nothing. Yeah, I said that right. But just
you did.
yeah, I'm tripping a little, guys. Just a little inside baseball. 2 minutes into the game, I get a text from Delta that my flight home on Christmas, the next day after Christmas, has been canceled. So I'm now staring down a 7-hour layover in Cincinnati tomorrow. I'm a little scrambled, but my grander point is if you are not going to use David Montgomery, if he's going to be a 4 to 9 carry guy playing 12 to 22 snaps, do right by the player, do right by your team and figure something out. Like his contract isn't backbreaking or anything, but with so many needs elsewhere, you have to start chipping away at the cap. And like you said, I'm glad you brought that up because that's my exact feeling. If this offensive line reinforces itself, if you've got depth, if you've got answers short and long term on the offensive line, man, we've seen what this offense can be when Gibbs and Montgomery are cooking. Oh, right now, yeah, it's just not there. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's just nothing. I mean, when David Montgomery gets a carry now, I go, "Whoa, who's that?"
Right.
And that shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I just don't. I don't want to see you if you're not going to go ahead and invest in this offensive line in the offseason the way that it needs to be done. Then you know what, like you said, do like we said, just do right by him. See what you can get for him, but
Yeah.
don't bring him back disgruntled. Don't ruin his career by just making him some guy that is some guy that's touching the ball as if he was an RB3 or an RB2.
He did have 10 carries today
Yeah.
for the first time in a while. First 10 carry game for David Montgomery since the Commanders game. That's a month and a half ago. So I don't know. A lot of talent there. Had some big games, man.
Yeah, and I think another reason, like you said, like we've been talking about, I think another reason why they haven't been able to use Montgomery as much as they have is because the offensive line play has not been there, and he's a different type of back than Gibbs. Gibbs is this guy who's just so dynamic when he gets the ball out in space. He can do pretty much just about anything. David, not to say that he's not a great running back, but when that he's a guy that needs to run between the tackles. He's a guy that needs to wear down that defensive front. And when you get the ball to him and that thing breaks down as soon as you snap it, I mean, it's not allowing him to perform at his best.
No, and Montgomery's got such a nose for the end zone, and he's so much more than just a pure power back, but he's a great power back, and he's a great guy. I mean, I just cannot. It's just such a weird year. I mean, he has 3 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns in 4 games coming into this game, and he did that on 21 carries in 3 games, and that was the Rams, Cowboys, and Packers Thanksgiving game. It's just weird, man. It's just weird. I know he didn't have his best either, 10 carries, 25 yards, but screw that. I have such a hard time blaming these running backs for anything. Just Gibbs averages 2.4 yards per carry on 17 attempts. Montgomery averages 2.5 yards per attempt on 10 carries. It just got to a point, and you had Jared Goff with 2 quarterback sneaks, which is pretty rare and kind of speaks to how this offensive line is playing right now, that they don't even have enough trust in them to hold blocks down for 1.5 seconds to get a yard or two. There's some broken aspects of this team right now, and it's the offensive line, and it's the offensive line. I just keep going back to it. Goff got sacked 5 times. I don't have the pressure numbers in front of me, but good Lord, it felt like he was pressured every other play. I think he got hit. It looks like 9 times. Jeez, Pete, multiple tackles for loss. So many tackles for loss by the Vikings.
And the 9 quarterback hits seems like that number is wrong. Just how the game looked.
Yeah, because I'm usually pretty good at like grabbing the pressure numbers, but PFF takes them right away, right when the game ends. I'm usually good at like hitting refresh when the clock is still going. But Tim Twentyman turned to me in the press conference. He goes, "What's the pressure numbers?" And I was like, "I don't know, 50." And I was like, "I don't actually have them." It just felt like 50. I just Goff has been really good against Flores' defense, but not this year. And guess why? The interior offensive line, and then you don't have Taylor Decker, and the interior offensive line is in an even worse place. But
And this is for the
yeah,
fans. I see some fans that are saying, "Well, why can't golf just slip out and evade the pressure?" I mean, guys, do you know what you're looking at? You're talking about as soon as that ball is snapped, they're in his face. I mean, and the times that it did hold up, he was able to do some. He was able to make a couple of throws. He was able to get a ball to a St. Brown and a JMO, but most of the time he was out there just. I mean, who is I want to say it was Jackson, who just came down from the safety, just untouched, just lit golf up. I mean, he every time golf, all the golf sacks, it's the one that he took. I believe on 4 of them I counted. They came untouched.
no, he said. I asked Jared because it was like the one question I asked Jared. He didn't have much to say after the game, and I really don't blame him. I mean, he had the two, jeez, yeah, with Kingsley in there. We haven't even talked about that. The first dropped snap leads to the Vikings' first touchdown. And then the one in the second half out of the gun where Van Ginkel somehow comes up with that ball rolling to the ground. I mean, there was miscommunications with the center. But I asked him, I was like, you guys showed what this offense was capable of. You had 6 first downs, a 19-play, 80-yard touchdown drive. What changed in the second half? And he straight up said the Vikings made adjustments. We didn't adjust well to them. They brought extra rushers, and a lot of guys had free lanes. And just, it's so true. There were so many untouched blockers and so many just swinging gate fences. Ah, man. Well, it's getting up there. Let's let's get out of here. The Lions are out of the playoffs. Got one game left. We'll find out when that game is, if it's Saturday or Sunday here after the Week 17 games come to an end. The Lions are eliminated. 1-4 in the division, 8-8 on the season, lost 3 straight. They're 3-6 since the bye week. I have to say this stuff multiple times because it's hard to believe right now. um, there's a little long weekend here coming off of Christmas. I don't think we have availability with Dan probably until Monday. We will be back with a mailbag podcast 1 week from today. That's right. It's Thursday. So get them in. I know. Do it for me. Do it for me. It was my birthday yesterday. It's Christmas. I'm spending 6 hours in Cincinnati before getting home to see my family. So send those questions, voice memos, Dungeon of Doom at MLive.com. We need them. I know.
That's the one thing that really sucks for me for you. It's
I'm
like,
terrified.
boy, at least if you I was hoping like, all right, hopefully he could at least just go cover the team winning and still have playoff hopes, and his birthday is not a total drag. Now you got the canceled flight and all of this just compound on top of it. It's just like, boy, oh boy, this is the gift that keeps on giving.
I'm gonna try Skyline Chili for the first time tomorrow because I got a lot of time to kill, and that's how much I hate myself right now. Hey, it comes with a job. I got to be honest. It's the only canceled flight I've
Yeah,
had of the season. What are you gonna do? Nobody wants to hear about that, but that is like the microcosm of how things went today as a Detroit Lions beat writer.
yeah.
It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy, man. So please get those mailbag questions in. Corey and I will still be holding things down, all Lions all the time at mlm.com/Lions. I know it's going to be tough, but coming out of next week's game at the Bears, it's time to look ahead. And it's a vital, vital turning point in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' tenure leading this franchise because they got some holes to fill. They got some tough decisions to make, and they got to get this thing back on the track. They set the high bar. You got to reach that bar. I'm not talking crazy like hot seats or nothing like that. No way, no how. But the expectations are different, and you've kind of put yourself in this hole. I know a lot of injuries, but as Dan said, they've always found a way these last 3 years. these last 2.5 years, whatever. I lose track of what it's been now. They've always kind of found ways to fill those gaps and come out on the side, at least not looking this bad. But yeah, man, Lions lose to the Vikings 23-10 on Christmas. It's Christmas. It does not feel like Christmas. I'm sure it feels even less like Christmas after something like that. I just, the window's closed, and once we get through this Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell game number 2 to end the season, it'll be looking ahead to the draft. The combine will be here before we know it. Free agency, owners meetings, all that stuff. It's going to be busy. It's going to be important. And I wish I could sit here and tell you what I expect, but I do, like you said, expect a lot of changes.
Yeah, just when a season comes to a screeching halt like this, changes have to be made. They have to be meaningful changes. And when we talk, and they have to be ones that get this franchise back on track. Because, like you said, you set a bar. You've won back to back division titles. You went to the NFC Championship. You've won playoff games. You've hosted playoff games. Regression like this by not even making the postseason, yeah, you have to look in the mirror. You're going to have some hard conversations. And I am just very curious to see how this end of season exit press conferences with Dan Campbell, with Brad Holmes, and the players goes, because this is enough. This is a foreign off of the past 2 years. They've been in this spot before, but this coming off of the past 2 years, the highs, the being recognized as one of the league's best. This is now a foreign spot for them to be in a position where they're going to be watching the playoffs from home and having to look forward to the draft, look forward to retooling this. And I'm just curious we hear from Dan every week. I'm really curious to see what Brad Holmes has to say about this when we speak with him.
Oh, I mean, it's that end of year press conference is all I can think about right now.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I can think about is what Dan Campbell said after the 2023 NFC title game in Santa Clara against the 49ers.
No, it's no guarantee you get back.
This may have been our only shot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of writing my column around that right now and how they can make that not be the case and how it kind of feels like it is the case right now. I don't know, guys. I don't want to doom and gloom you to death, but it's a vital, man. I just can't believe it's the end of the season. They're 8-8, no playoffs. It's going to be, I love my job. I love the off season. I love getting a little life back. What's that? Don't know. But I miss when the games are done so much, and just kind of got a little, I don't get emotional over wins and losses. That's not me. That's not my place. That's not what I'm about. But just like, damn, I like covering football games, and there's only one more left before freaking September because I don't count the preseason. But it's just weird, man. It's just weird. But thank you guys for hanging with us. I hope we've done this moment justice. I think we have. We're going to keep chipping away at it. I'm working on the column for the morning right now, and probably just going to go to the airport like a crazy person really early just in case a flight gets canceled or delayed or anything like that, because we'll see what happens. But send those questions in, recorded voice memos, Dungeon of Doom at MLive.com. We are your MLive Dungeon of Doom podcast.